Welcome back to Super Buddies Forever, and I want to answer a question today that I've been asked many times. For one, if you're a doll collector, what is the worst thing about doll collecting? Dust. And the question I've been asked most, especially when people see my doll room with all the dollhouse stuff, how do you dust it? Well, I'm going to show you. Here I have one of my Ever After High rooms, and let me tell you, this is an extreme example. This box room is usually on the very bottom of the floor. The dog walks by it. It is probably the worst dust and dog hair disgustingness I have ever seen. Some of it seems obvious on how to clean it, but some of it may not. But I'm just going to take a little time and give you an example of how I do it and what I use. Right off the hop, a natural feather duster is the key. This is about one of the only ones that I would absolutely say go out of your way to buy and spend the money on the natural feather duster. It took me a while to actually find one, and I think it was about 20 bucks. But besides doing my own home with lights and chandeliers or whatever, they're not real fancy chandeliers, but cleaning chandeliers and frames of pictures, this comes in really handy. Keep careful that it's not around where little cats and dogs can get to it, because they like to chew these because it actually is real feathers. So this one's pretty obvious for big stuff and around boxed dolls. This is the best. You truly can't beat this thing for dusting your box dolls. As you can see, I mean, you hardly even have to pick them up. And even when you do pick them up, it's just easy peasy. This is a quick way of getting the surface dust out. So this one, you'll get the little things. But of course, if you do unboxed dolls, it is not going to get the details, and then you're going to start knocking them over. So this is awesome for big box stuff. Even when I get to on top of the dollhouse roof, it becomes handy. I'm sure I didn't have to show you this, but to those who don't speak English and enjoy watching these, they'll know what I'm talking about. So thanks for bearing with me. Next is my favorite few. This is a fan brush. This is another one I highly suggest. This comes in really good for dollhouse stuff. In particular, I'll show you an example of what I mean, why that fan is absolutely the best. And then just for doing the dolls themselves is these ones. This is just a paintbrush. That's a paintbrush too. That's a fan paintbrush. This is a blush brush. And this is a big, huge natural type hair paintbrush. This is actually for oils or varnish. Here's the exact packaging for this brush. Think of it as an investment for your dolls. Even if it costs $7, $8, worth it. The key, I think, is having the uneven edge so that when you drag it along something, it actually gets into the crevices and nooks, different from if it were blunt. And the synthetic, really cheap flat ones, you know what I'm talking about? I looked all over. I don't even have a simple example to show you because I know they're useless for everything. For a quick example, what I do have, these are very economical, and they're a stiffer synthetic plastic, but at least the edges are fanned and uneven, so that will do the same job for you. Now, if you want to make your job even easier, there's blush brushes and sets for just about everything. I think I got this at Ross, this whole set for maybe $8. I keep that with my jean stuff, so I have some in the doll room, I have some over by the jean stuff, so I can just have it handy whenever I should need it for dusting. Now, right off the hop, this one is a little bit stiffer than the others. What that's really good for is when you're getting into the eyes, because it can get stuck there a lot, or furthermore into ears. Like, I know that seems ridiculous, but the ears are really hard to get cleaned out when your brush is too big and might miss it. Even when you get to the fan one, it's too soft, so you'll push it on it and it'll kind of like not work. So I do like the little bit stiffer like that. And then when you get into makeup brushes, that's where this one, the lipstick blender, I think it is, I don't know what they call it, a brow brush, that comes in handy for the same thing. That can help you get into nooks and crannies like in here too, if you really can't get that with the brush. Next is any blush brush. Now I can use either of these. These are generally do everything. Now first off, this is obviously big guns, and that works just like a broom. with still being soft, that whatever surface you put it on, you're really, nobody be knocking on me. This happens on bottom floors, bottom shelves, especially when you have pets. Yuck. Wait till you see the doll room. It's way different, but I will not take abuse from this because I have a wonderful dog. So that is the big guns for that kind of stuff. And then when you get into a doll room that's a little harder and you got to get around things, this one I find is the do-all, get all for that. And I have this one for it too. Yeah, let me finish this up. For actually doing the dolls, these are my favorite too, one or the other, kind of jump back and forth between the two. So some of it that seems very simple is just, oops, I just dropped that, but that's okay, is just going over it. I mean, there's nothing fun or easy or non-tedious, oh, I got some chips, about dusting dolls. Everybody hates it, right? Well, I guess the doggy needs something. So I just keep going with this. Now you can see why this one, being not quite as soft as these ones, would pass through and not get this. But with having this brush being just a little bit stiffer paintbrush compared to makeup brush, you can really get into it. Even the curls, I find two hands. I guess I'm just showing you how I do it. Now when I get hairstyles like this, someone specifically asked me about this. You can see this brush really does all the work. So yeah, just tedious and boring. The right brush really helps now, as I told you, when I get into little earrings and things. I might do that. And you know, you don't have to do this too often. The mess I have is, I mean, 1.5 years of sitting there gunked and not paid attention to. So that's not usually that bad, but you know, it's just showing you these things are really, really helpful. And that light one, that one works just as good. It doesn't get into the curls as well, I find. See, it, you know, it won't work its way in there with the brush. So that's why I like that one too much, really much more. Sorry, I'm not talking very well. I'm wondering what the dog wants. If perchance you have the dust so thick, I mean, I don't think it gets much thicker than this, and you can tell it's working. I would dab it in the lightest bit of water, the lightest bit. If you're really having trouble, shake it off, brush it off, get it as light as you possibly can, so it's just like so, just a little. That might get you some really stubborn areas if need be, but the lightest possible, especially in the hair that has gel. Yeah, Grace is helping me because you don't want too much water to take away your hairstyle. All right, thanks for your help. In the dollhouse, in lots of the rooms, there's lots of trinkets, and everybody always asks, how do you dust all that stuff? It's gonna go falling and flying all over. Well, a lot of you know my secret is museum wax. There's an entire video on that. Using this opens the door that I can put this much stuff and not worry about it being knocked down because it's all waxed down. Some of this loose stuff is not here because I want to play with it, but for decoration, it is not gonna move. So that is the biggest secret of all. Check out that video on how to use that. This is an amazing stuff. I love it, and it's not very expensive. So it actually, now that you know my secret, becomes very handy, very easy to dust. Now this is where this fan brush, as a matter of fact, these two brushes are the ones I keep in here in a thick blush brush to clean everything in here as I move along or play with something. So this is the actual fan brush I use, and very easily, even one-handed, I can get in there and dust so much with this without worrying about it. So museum wax, folks, is my biggest secret to most of this, and that really helps you decorate so much with it, not just as a part of dusting, But being able to decorate and do all these things, like who would line that up with the fear of hitting it and knocking it? No one. So now you can be crazy with your stuff like that. See? Easy peasy. Gone. And then I might use the big one for big areas like that. That's always my favorite to use as sort of a broom. And then my little one for the details. Sharing my secrets, the whole family. When you do have the huge blessing of having an actual room, there's a few tips you can use to be proactive and not have the dust in the first place. Of course, I have the window covered in a very thick black curtain that helps from sunlight not coming in, and anything that might come through my windows are old, it stops them from coming through and letting even the littlest bit of dust in, and light, of course. Then we have my vent. It may look simple, but what I did was took a curtain or a tool and I put it inside this grate. I know it sounds ridiculous, but it helps so much. You can see the green, which I think you would have seen that as a blanket. It was an old curtain I used for Venus. It's sticking out here. So I put that in there to work as an extra filter, and it really helps a lot. And then I flat out close it. So, you know, no one's in here. It's comfortable. So now this has done a ton to stop the dust. I will get some right here, but even then, okay, I haven't done this in a year, and it's really not that bad. Most important as well is forever closing the door. Always closing the door. I know that bit about the door seemed obvious, but you know, I usually keep my doors open in my house to let air get through, and it honestly took me a while to get used to shutting that door. So that's why I'm saying it, because sometimes I just don't think. So I thought I'd share that bit. Now we are back to the stuff that is not in its own room, but is in my hallway, a main hallway, and it is finally clean. It took me probably about 30 minutes using the techniques I showed you, and it's as clean as can be everywhere. It's not too hard. I watch TV and I'll dust, and I have a lot to do. You will see here in a minute. But all of that mess, which is just dust, did come up, and this room is now back to its former glory, and it's nice to enjoy. You know, if you really think of enjoying your doll and looking at it while you're dusting it, and when you're doing doll room stuff, you can kind of take notes of what you need to fix, what you want to add. It's not really such an awful thing. It's kind of nice. It gives me a reason to touch, look, feel, and enjoy each one I have. So I like that. And now I have a lot of work to do. What I'm going to do for now is put this stuff on them. So that until I do a tour of this room, these rooms all together, there will be no more dust until then. I have lots of this to use. Sadly, all of these on the bottom have suffered the same dust monster fate. I have a lot of work to do. Like I said, these are on the very bottom, so they got the worst of it compared to going higher. Wish me luck, friends. Thanks a lot, Panda. I'm totally joking about that. I wouldn't trade the cleanest dollhouse for that dog, ever.